Hi guys, welcome to a new episode of the Electronic Corner. Now, today's episode may be seen as an extension of the last one because we're still in Germany and we're still talking modular. And in fact, I just found out that today's guest and the guest we had last week, Never Sleep, know each other, which maybe proves that the modular community, let's say in Germany, is a small but hopefully happy family. Anyway, today's guest is Chris Wirrwitz. He records under the moniker Black Snow on Christmas, and let's go to meet him. Hi, Chris. Nice to see you. Thanks for accepting my invitation.
Yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good. Now, let's start immediately. And I apologize if the first question is a bit silly, but I just couldn't help. So tell me, how does black snow look like and why does it fall on Christmas?
I don't know how Black Snow looks like. It was, I don't know. I don't know where the title came from. It was, I think, a line I wrote down somewhere. And the idea was it's Christmas time. Everyone is waiting for snow. And everybody almost lost hope. But then it's snowing. But it's not normal snow. It's black snow. So it's even worse. And this kind of, I don't know, cynical or dark joke was the background of the name. So, but anyway, I don't think that band names are so important. So
okay, it depends. They become important when too many people are called the same way, and I know about that because I was the only Sergio 15 years ago when I started. Now there's full of Sergios, and it's a big mess for for streaming and other things.
Yeah, that's true. So Black Snow on Christmas is maybe special enough to be alone in this respect.
I think so, at least for a while. And actually, you seem to like unusual names, let's say, also for your album titles, because your latest album that you have just released is called 20 Golden Melodies from the Post-Industrial Era. Very cool. So what inspired you to give this title?
Well, there's a Throbbing Crystal classic with the number 20. I think 20 jazz standards. I don't remember it quite now, but this was one part. The other part was, I think, Ween did a country album with 12 golden country crates or something like this a while back. So the idea was to take the same street and to do something like this. But yeah, of course, there are 9 tracks on it, so it doesn't make sense at all. But I thought the name would be good.
Okay, that's good enough. Yeah, I would have asked them, but the tracks are 9, or did I miss something? But okay, you already answered. Thank you.
Yes, 9 tracks.
Now, the tone of your voice and even more the way you sing, the way you sing, especially on songs like Come Alone, for example, from your latest album, they remind me of like country music or even more Frank Tovey, when he removed the moniker Fat Gadget and he started releasing albums using his real name. He was making some lovely like country electronic folk, let's say, inspired album. And in a way, you remind me of that style. So I was wondering, is it just a coincidence or maybe just my own impression, or are you indeed influenced in some way by this kind of music, let's say something between country, folk, electronic,
Yeah,
style?
no, I'm not inspired by country music. I mean, I listen to the late Johnny Cash stuff now and then, but what I normally love in this direction is, let's say, Leonard Cohen or Nick Cave or Mark Lanigan, stuff like that. So I'm like the singer-songwriter, dark indie rock style of music, and I happen to have a low voice, so and there's a certain necessity to sing my own songs. I never liked my voice so much, but I thought it's important that I sing the songs myself, so I have to deal with it.
Yeah, well, and They sound good enough to me, so I think you should keep singing them. And
Thanks.
also, the covers of your album reflect this kind of dark attitude, right? In a way,
Yes,
the
yes.
covers of your album, they also give this kind of idea of gloomy, dark, atmosphere. And do you do them yourself, or
Yes,
are they made by
yes.
some graphics or
No,
artist?
normally I do everything by myself, except for some backing vocals in the music and the mastering of the music. But the rest is all by myself. And yeah, the music is a bit gloomy and melancholic and dark at times, many tracks at least. And so I like this aesthetics. So it's working for me. But
Yes.
yeah, that's the background of this. Um,
Okay, thank
and
you.
and
Now,
there's
I
a
heard.
connection. I live on an island. Maybe I can I tell you this. I live on an island, and so the Baltic Sea is very close here. It's like 100 meters in this direction. So on both covers, you have the sea, one in a styled way, but or artificial way. But this is somehow the connection to the pictures of the sea. So,
I
and the
see.
first one was called "Dark Times on a Sunny Beach," and
Hmm.
this is a reference to the place where I'm
I
living.
see. Yeah. Well, actually, I was just about to ask you about that, in the sense that in the latest episode of the Electronic Corner, our mutual friend Dirk Pogzeba, also known as Never Sleep, I interviewed
Ah,
him, and he was telling us how living in Berlin was making his life easier, like to buy modules, to meet other modular musicians, let's say, and the atmosphere and so on. And I know in Hidden that things are exactly the opposite. I think there is
exactly.
not much an electronic music
No, there.
movement, and buying stuff can be a problem. So I was wondering how that was affecting your music, in good and in bad, living in such a secluded place.
Um, let's say I have maybe let's say 10% of what Never Sleep has in terms of modules. So it's an healthy way not to buy too much. That is one point. I mean, he has a huge modular system. I have a small one, so it makes it, let's say, easier. Now, I was living in Berlin actually from '96 to 2006 for 10 years. Studied there, um, but I left it, and now I'm often there for work. But I don't feel good there anymore. It's too big, too loud, too many people. So now I live on an island where you can go only by boat, and with 1,000 inhabitants. So this is the better place for me.
I see. Good. Now, you mentioned modules, so let's talk about that. I heard of people, actually, some of them are friends of mine, so I know it as a fact. They started making music maybe like 20, 30 years with modular synths. And then for whatever reason, usually it's like a cost, maintenance cost or space, they had to relocate or whatever. They sold everything and they went digital. But as far as I know, you did exactly the opposite. You started digital and then you moved to modular. So I'm
Yes.
curious to know why this choice.
I mean, the first thing is it's incredible expensive, the whole thing. So it's a stupid idea to actually get into the modular world if you're not rich in the first place. But for me, I felt like, I don't know, trapped in the laptop musics. I I recorded stuff. Okay, I play guitar, I play bass, I play some other instruments, and I always recorded it in Ableton Live. And but I used a lot of soft synths, so to speak, from Ableton and some other plugins. And I was never. I liked the sounds, but I didn't like the process of choosing them. It was so, I don't know. I didn't have so much ideas how to actually, or for what reason I use a sound. Let's put it like this. So when in 2016, I bought a Korg Mini Logue, and the Korg Mini Logue is an analog synth. You can do a lot of stuff with it, but I understood that the sound it's restricted in a way, but at the same time it sounds so beautiful, and it gave me a lot of inspiration to work with that thing. And then I started to slowly understand what actually happens in a sense. So it was an educational project as well. And then I thought, okay, I try some modules, and it's a wormhole, as everyone is saying. So either you leave it like that after 5 modules, or you get really into it. And I love it. It's great. Maybe now I buy, let's say, 2 or 3 modules a year, nothing more like this. I have a lot of modules. I don't use everything.
I see.
It's not everything in the box I'm working with. So you can see I have a rack with a module, and that's fine with me. But yeah, I think the creative process was the decisive argument for working with modules.
I see. Okay, thank you. Now, let's talk a bit about the Black Snow on Christmas Monthly. It's a sort of fanzine or pamphlet, whatever you want to call it, that you send on PDF. Now, I took a look at your latest issue, and yeah, I love the fact that you were describing each single song of your latest album there. That's something I do as well on my website with my songs. I think it's very important for people to know, the story behind each of them. I think it's very cool. And also, what hit me, let's say, was you mentioned something called the music experience movement. Can you tell us a bit more about that? What is it?
Yeah, this is I don't know, some people from Instagram, especially, who started, I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago or so, to collect people they like, and to change, or to get ideas from each other, to have projects together, to push each other. And at some point they had a logo, and they had a first album, collected album from several artists from the movement. So it's nothing like I'm not a member in the sense that I have a contract or something, but it's just like yeah, a group of people, and they're very active, and I'm a part of it in the way that they ask me if they have a new album going on, and very cool, nice people from the United States, especially, and they have artists all around the world, and it's happening more or less exclusively on Instagram and Bandcamp.
I have to take a look then. It sounds interesting indeed.
Great people, definitely.
Okay. Now, in the description of one of your videos on YouTube, you're asking, why are we curious about new gear, but a little bored of new artists? I quote that. So what is your answer to that question?
I don't have an answer.
That's why you were asking, right?
Yeah. If you're doing electronic music these days and you're on YouTube, it's easy to have a bit more attention from the viewers if you are speaking about modules, speaking about gear, speaking about controllers, speaking about plugins, and so on. And but if you're putting music there, yeah, just a very small part of your viewers are actually listening to the music. Although many people use YouTube for music, to listen to music, but I think there's a lot of music everywhere in the world, of course. It's easy to produce music, it's easy to release it. So there's much music, and but the same amount of attention as, let's say, 20 years ago. So more artists are sharing the same amount of attention. So for this reason, it's it's easy to get lost somehow in the big ocean of fresh music. And but why it's
Mhm.
interesting to see something about gear, I'm not sure about. It's the same for me, right? I love tutorials. I love to see new gear on YouTube, although it's always a bit dangerous because at some point you think, maybe I need this to make even better music, and you buy the stuff, and that's not always sensible to do it. So I don't know about you. Do you acquire a lot of new gear, or are you out of the game?
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, I mostly use digital stuff, so I'm not, and that's why I'm so interested always, to interview people who use hardware, because even though I started with hardware, but now just for my own convenience, I use all VST, and there was a period where I was driving stuff like crazies. You wouldn't believe I have Reason, I have Live, I have Logic, I have Cubase, all bought, by the way. No,
Yeah, yeah,
nothing cracked. And I spent a lot of money, and then I realized, what the heck are you doing? Because then you don't learn to use anything, like 10% of each product, and that leads you nowhere. And
yeah,
so that's when I
yeah.
stopped and I said, okay, let's just stick with one or two things, learn 80% of them, and things started to work much better for me.
Yeah, yeah. There is a Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, the guitar player. Um, he when they started, he had a certain amp and a certain guitar and some pedals, and he's still using it. He decided very early that he doesn't need the new stuff, so he's using guitars and pedals for 30 years now, and that's very inspiring in a way too, because of course he could afford a lot of stuff. He wouldn't even need to buy it. There are so many companies that would throw guitars and pedals at him, but he's sticking to a very small collection of things. So I like this idea to really learn it, to really understand it, and to use this kind of restriction to be creative in a way.
Yeah, of course he's right, but sometimes you have to learn the hard way. So just getting inspiration from other people is not enough.
Yes.
You need to smash your head somewhere, and then you learn the lesson.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we started to mention gears, and so it's time for the last question, which is like studio demonstration or whatever you are going to show us. I'm really curious to learn more about your toys, let's say. And so let's watch it now.
All right. So I thought I'll make a little thing with my modular synth. This is just a small rack I built for this little tutorial. The main idea is that I want to have a beat, a normal beat, like let's say some techno or whatever, 4 on the floor with a simple snare, but with interesting hi-hats. So what I want to try is some kind of trappy hi-hats that are not regular, not straight on the beat, but that behave a bit strange and odd. This is what I want to do with these modules, and I hope that I can explain this without being too boring. I just give you a short overview over the modules. You don't have to understand everything if you're not familiar with this kind of gear, but just to have a rough idea of how this is working. This is a sequencer, um, and I want to make it stepping through the stages, and so I connected to a clock divider. This white cable here is just an external clock, which I doubled using the black cable, so I have the clock both on the clock divider and on this little switch, where you can see it's just switching between two states. So we have a sequencer here, then we have this clock divider, and then we have this little switch. Here is an oscillator I want to use later for the hi-hats. And this is a simple switch where I can give or take single parts of the beat. Then I have a drum module with 2 voices, hi-hat and snare. I have a kick module for the kick. And I have a TG1, a tip-top audio module, which is throwing out samples. And in this case, it's throwing crystal samples, which is very nice. I don't use the clap here, and I have a little mixer. Okay, so first thing we need, as always, is a very simple kick, and I just connect the output of the kick with channel 2. I connect the input of the kick with the clock divider. Nothing is happening yet because the clock divider, no, sorry, not the clock divider. The switch is simply giving what I put in here to the output. So I repeat the beat on the one switch, and so we can hear a kick. Now we want a snare, and for this I use the little drum module by a.k.a. Synth. So the output I connect to channel 1, and the input of the kick is, let's say, on the clock divider. So that's a very slow one. So we want to have this faster. We do this. Okay. I want to take away the kick from time to time, so I use this little switch and can interrupt the line, the input of the snare, and when I switch here, I have the snare. That's the idea of this. Okay, now let's put in some samples, otherwise we die of boredom. And we want to have the TG1 on channel 3. And we want to have an input, a trigger. Let's say we put it here first. No, it's not often enough. We put it here. And now we can change the sample simply by adding a CV source, a voltage source, and I use the clock divider again, so we have like 2 samples that are fired from the TG1, or even more samples. Okay. Now for the interesting part. The interesting part are the hi-hats. And what I use here is a sequencer that is going into an oscillator. So I go out of the sequencer into the oscillator and out from the oscillator with a square wave such that it is a trigger into the hi-hat module directly. Now it depends on what I dial in here, you see? So if I take it up, it's faster. If I put it down, it's slower. Now we have to try a bit. That sounds interesting. And now that's it. In the first place, we can add a little bit of change here too. One idea would be to take the same rhythm for the hi-hats, also for the kick drum, but not on every beat. So I take the switch, put it to 4. Now, depending on what's happening here in the sequencer, the oscillator fires more or less faster or slower, and this will yield on the third stage of the other sequencer of the switch for the kick drum a different outcome. So I solo the kick drum. We can't hear anything. So maybe another waveform is better. Yeah, this waveform is better. It didn't work with a ramp or sawtooth. It works with a triangle. So here you can hear it. So you can even have blast beats. Now this should be the same rhythm as with the hi-hats. But the idea of the sequencer switch is simply I have this special rhythm only on the third step. So on the first step I have the normal beat, then there's a pause, there's nothing on the 2, then I have the faster or slower beats on the 3, and on the 4 there's nothing again. So this gives us some kind of non-boring effects. Something's happening. If I want to have the 4 on the floor again, I just put it to the first 2 steps. I can make the whole thing a bit faster. Now the snare is too fast for my taste, so I change the snare simply by changing the input here. And now we have something which resembles electronic music. Now I take in the samples again and we're finished. It's a very simple thing, of course. It's not so much happening, but I like the idea of the hi-hats to be more interesting, to be a bit trap-like, to change it. And of course, if you want to try it, you have to find out what sounds good, what doesn't. For me, it's nice to have these non-straight, these odd hi-hats from time to time. Okay, so that's it about it.
Thanks a lot, Chris. That was very interesting, to learn how you use your modules. Okay, they may not be many, as you mentioned, but I mean, who cares? It doesn't matter, how much things you have, but how you use them. And as we said before, sometimes less is more, or is better. And so, yeah, that was very interesting indeed. So thanks a lot for being with us today. All the best for your new album. And we'll keep in touch then.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for the invitation. It was very nice to speak to you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.